good weather for cats to stay sleeping. When it's warm like this, they generally don't do too much, so it's pretty good that we've had a hot day. It allows us at least to be able to see them. But I don't see any signs of the little ones. It looks like at the moment just all three of the females that are lying in the shade there. And you can see that they're actually breathing very, very heavily. It's excessively hot today, so for them, you know, that fur that they've got is going to be really, really warm and very, very uncomfortable. The other side of it is that they are quite full, particularly the female on the left looks like she's had a good meal, so in all likelihood they ate last night and she's just in the process of digesting, and that extra bit of kind of meat inside her is probably causing her to build up quite a bit of heat as her body breaks down that protein. But I'm really, really happy to find these guys. We've had no sign of lions for the last few days. The Nkuhumas seem to be up in the Manyaleti somewhere, and so the three Styx have been down in Mala Mala, and so nice for them to have come back to us. I believe there was a Birmingham boy with them this morning. I'm not quite sure where he's gone. I don't see any sign of him yet, although I do actually see a vehicle on the other side of the runway, so maybe that's where he's lying, is on the other side of the airstrip, giving the ladies a break for now. But if you actually look at the chins of all of these lions, they've definitely had a drink recently. Most of them, the chins are quite wet. The one that's dripping there like that is actually not from water where she's been drinking. That's just from the saliva from her panting. And now she's gone and promptly wiped it off before we can see it nicely. But that was just her panting, and she's producing moisture by panting, and that's why it's falling out. But the female just to the right of her, you can actually see quite nicely that there's a nice little brown patch right on her face, and that's where she would have just had a drink quite recently. You can actually see the mud is still on there, so she's had a drink fairly recently. And I'm quite surprised that they're so head up at the moment. It's so warm. I would have thought that they would have been sleeping, but they've actually got their heads up and watching. So I think that in all likelihood there's probably been some impalas or things that have moved around, and that's why they've got their head up. So this is actually the Styx Pride, but we're not down on Cheetah Plains. They are quite mobile at the moment. They're moving around all over the place. We're up on Arathusa airstrip at the moment, and this is the core of the Styx home range. They don't spend all their time on Cheetah Plains and in Koro and Chitwa. They do actually come quite a lot west as well. The furthest west I've ever seen them is all the way at Simambili Lodge in Elephant Plains, so they do go quite far. It's very uncommon for them to go that far, but they do from time to time. The kind of edge of their territory normally is this airstrip. This is normally as far as they really come. They like to come and check around on the airstrip, and then from here they push back eastwards again towards Cheetah Plains. But yes, it is the Styx Pride. You can see a little bit of the mange on this female's belly, which helps to ID them. So Daniel, it's a very relevant question. I'm actually not sure where the cubs may be. Given that they're quite full-bellied, I would have imagined that they would have had food somewhere. It's possible that the cubs have just been stashed somewhere close by to this airstrip, and they were potentially hunting here early this morning, and they've just stashed the cubs, and then they'll go and fetch them later. It just got a little bit hot, and they didn't go back to them. The cubs are still quite small. They're I think about 4 or 5 months old now, so you know, they're not really moving around with the pride all the time. The female does still leave them from time to time, so she'll just hide them away and then go back and fetch them should they go find a carcass. So I'm pretty sure that they are somewhere close by. We did see them last week, and they were very healthy. When I was driving here, I saw some tracks for them, and I actually didn't notice any tracks for any babies. I only saw tracks for the adults, so in all likelihood I don't think the babies are with them at this stage. But isn't it nice to see them? Like I say, they really, every time I see them, they're looking so much better. They've had a really rough run of it because of the mange that they had during the drought. They really battled a little bit, but they've really started to come back into their own as we've had some rain, which has started to kind of kill that mite off a little bit. So their condition is far better, and they've really starting to look very, very healthy again. So I'm really happy about that. And like I say, the two little cubs, the last time I saw them, were absolutely full and fat, and they were waddling around, and so hopefully they're going to survive. We really would be nice for the Styx to get some sort of a survival rate going. They've really had a hard time of it the last few years. A number of different male coalitions have come through this area, and it's meant that they really haven't had a positive growth through the pride. So I'm hoping that these two cubs that they've just had will survive, and then hopefully the other two females will mate fairly shortly. Maybe that's why that Birmingham boy was following them this morning. Could be that one of these females is coming into estrus, and possibly then there's going to be some mating going on. But yeah, so while we sit and watch these guys for a little bit and see what they get up to, we're going to go across to Brent, who's on Cheetah Plains, and see what he's up to. Yes, we are indeed. We've got this big male lion that's just come out of the open. One of the females has gotten up and just carried on walking straight southeast, and there's a couple impala that have started alarm calling, and that woke the male up, and he's now just come slowly out of his little thicket there. And I think he's a bit torn as to where does he go. Does he come to the shade where there's two girls, or does he just follow the one female that is mobile? I think it's a tough decision. If I was him, I think I'd come to the shade for now. That other female looks like she's quite mobile. I wonder if she's not going to go and try and see if she can find her cubs. It's very possible that her cubs are hidden somewhere on our eastern side. The tracks did come from that way, so in all likelihood it could be where she's going. It looks like the male's decided that he's going to come this way. He's walking straight towards us at the moment, which is quite nice. He's hopefully going to come and join the girls that are on this side. It'll be nice to see the interaction between them. The other females have popped their head up with the noise of the impala's alarm calling. And so I think the approach of him will also cause some interest too. Now, I can't see exactly which Birmingham it is. He's still quite a way off from where we are. So I don't know if any of the viewers, if you guys would let us know which one it is, if you can get an ID from that distance. I've got quite a bit of glare on my screen, so I can't see very well who he is. But whichever one it is, he's absolutely beautiful. And isn't it nice to see him right out in the open like that, in this beautiful afternoon sun? What a beautiful picture that is. His coat is shining. Those manes are getting so big now, and you can see the darkness coming through. He's starting to get quite black around the chest area and coming over into a mohawk. Absolutely beautiful. Janice, with the animals alarm calling, all animals will hear that alarm call. What happens is that they utilize it as a way of defending each other. So when they're herbivores, they're not going to eat one another. So if they can shout and tell the other herbivores that there is this threat, then they will do that. So they all hear each other. They know very well that if impalas are calling, if you're a wildebeest and you hear impalas alarm calling, that there is going to be somewhat of a threat. So they do all know very well. They won't only listen to their own species. Isn't that magnificent? So he's perfectly situated on the tarmac. Just going to see, sorry, we're just going to try to get it so that I don't have to stare into the sun too much. So just going to reposition slightly. Just give me 2 seconds. There we go. I don't think he's going to be lying there for very long. Unfortunately, it's going to be very hot on that runway. I'm sure that tarmac is quite warm, so I don't think he's going to sit there for too long. But it's always so nice to see them right out in the open. And he looks as regal as he's ever going to look when he sits like that with his head up, this beautiful breeze blowing in his mane. Absolutely magnificent. And you can see he's quite warm. He is panting a little bit as well. And look at that yawn. Watch the teeth. Aren't those teeth incredible? So I think it's Tinyo by the look of it. It looks like that bottom left canine is missing, so I think it's him, but I'm not 100% sure. Like I say, if some of the viewers can maybe let me know exactly who it is. I'm not that familiar with the names of the Birmingham boys. Like I say, I didn't see too much of them in the last few months, and I know the names were given to them, and I'm not actually sure which Birmingham boy was assigned with which name, but I think this is Tinyo, the one that we call Tinyo, but we'll get some confirmation just now. But you can see he's watching these females, and actually there's a female that's busy walking towards us. Oh, she's laid down again. She's just went to the edge of that shade and has lay back down. So caught his interest for a little bit. I don't, like I say, think he'll lay there for long. He'll be a bit wary of approaching the females. They are still capable of giving him a bit of a smack, and if they don't really want his presence, then you'll find sometimes they can be quite aggressive. But you can see she's just staring down to where one of her relatives is gone. See the Birmingham boy is up as well. He's just coming across past the front of the vehicle here. Isn't that magnificent? So you can get a nice size ratio there. Oh, shaking of the mane a little bit. I think there's a couple insects landing there. So Alex, the darker manes, it is true that there is generally a sign of older, more dominant males, but there is a certain amount of genetics involved as well. So the lions in this particular area, they tend not to be very dark maned, and they tend to have quite mixed manes. So you'll find a little bit of black, a little bit of blonde, and they don't get those really deep black manes that you'll see in the Kalahari Desert in those areas. So there is a slight difference in variation in certain areas, and like I say, but as they get older, generally their mane starts to darken, and it does signify a more dominant male. So let's see how these females react to him. He's just slowly approached, and the one female has turned. But she's having none of his advances at this stage. She's just kind of rolled over, and I think he wants to try and see if he can maybe sniff and see if she's maybe into an estrus. You see how he's slowly approaching, and he's just going to lie down right there. I think he's decided that's the perfect place. And you'll find if she moves, he'll move. So as soon as she kind of stands up, you'll find he'll stand up, and often he'll go and try and sniff underneath her tail. And what he's trying to pick up on is any sort of pheromones that she's releasing, that he could potentially then pick up if she's mating, or ready to be mated with, and if she's in her estrus cycle. And like I say, if this male is so close to these females and has been following them since last night, I would be pretty sure that one of these females is starting to come into an estrus cycle, which is great news, because at the end of the day it means that we might get some more little cubs running around in about 3 months' time. But you can see she's in a position of total recline. Not very ladylike, but perfectly comfortable. If you're a lioness and it's a very hot day, lying like that means that your tummy's exposed, the breeze that is blowing over your tummy and just cooling you down quite quickly. So that will be one very happy lioness. And I would imagine that that male shortly is going to drop his head down. I don't think he's going to be up like that for much longer. You can hear in the background the Egyptian geese are not very impressed with the lions lying near their waterhole. Lots of objection going on behind us. There's also a little francolin that's on the dam wall, which I'm sure is not helping the situation either. So there's a little francolin that's walking around. When the francolin appeared, the Egyptian geese started to go quite crazy. And that is a little Swainson's spurfowl, actually. It's not a francolin. It used to be called a Swainson's francolin, but the name was changed to a spurfowl because of the big spur on the back of its leg. It's got like a little sort of pointed spur is the name, and they use that when they're fighting for dominance and to challenge for females. And so the name was changed to a spurfowl. And they are quite common in areas like this, particularly big open sections. They really, really like those kind of areas. It allows them to be able to forage for grass seeds and still be able to see predators as they go. But it will be completely unperturbed by the lions. Had there been a leopard here, you would find that those francolins would be alarm calling a lot more. And that's because the leopards tend to hunt the francolins quite a bit, whereas these lions, especially a big male like this with two females, they're not going to be interested in a francolin at all. It's going to be far too little for the three of them to share, and so they'll only be looking for much bigger animals. In fact, these guys are really pretty much buffalo specialists, so what they really go after is buffalo mostly. That's what they like to hunt, and what is their preferred sort of choice on the menu. You will find that they will go after wildebeest and zebra and kudu as well, given that it's only 3 females. If the male's not with them, then sometimes the buffalo are a little bit tough to bring down. Although this pride seems to manage quite well. I've seen them on a number of buffalo carcasses over the years, and there's still a few buffalo walking around that are still a little bit skinny and kind of thin from the drought, and so that's what they will be banking on, is finding those kind of animals. But judging by her, she definitely had something very decent to eat. The others don't look that full at all. In fact, the female that walked away earlier, she was actually very skinny. She didn't look like she got anything. So maybe they caught something small like a little baby impala, and the female that is lying there with the fat belly got the lion's share, so to speak. Forest, you were asking about the francolin and that they won't go after them, but would they go after the Egyptian goose? In a pride of 3 like that, or 4 that we've seen here, I would imagine no, they wouldn't. The Egyptian goose really isn't enough food for all 4 of them at all. But if the Egyptian goose was really stupid enough to move too close to these lions, instinct might take over and they might grab them. I have seen lone lionesses going after bigger birds, so I've seen them go after Egyptian geese, actually, funny enough, spur-winged goose, so they do sometimes go after those, but it's generally if it's a lone lioness and she's really kind of desperate for food and she's battling for food, so that's when they will go after them. But in a situation like this, no, there's really not enough meat on that little goose to feed this group of lions, and the effort to actually go after them and eat them is going to be far more than they're actually going to be rewarded with by eating them. So generally they like to chase bigger things because they know they're going to expend the same amount of energy chasing and running after those birds or animals, and if they catch a bigger animal, they're going to get a lot more reward for their effort. So they tend to like to rather go after bigger things. But it's not to say that they won't chase those Egyptian geese. Sometimes lions are quite funny. I've seen them chasing things before. And generally, though, it's not to actually kill them. They're more kind of playful and they chase the geese away. And that's the end of that. As you can see. So while we see what unfolds with this Birmingham and the Styx and see what they get up to, we're going to go across to Brent and see what little interesting things he's managed to find on Cheetah Plains. And you guys have come back just in time. The lionesses have both gotten up now and are both walking into the most beautiful afternoon light. And not to forget our bird challenge in the background there. There are some crowned lapwings, so much like the nest that Brent was showing you. Those are the crowned lapwings, and those have got that little crown on top, and that's where they get their name. You can see they're not very happy about these lionesses coming into their area, and so they're giving the lionesses a hard time. They've been calling and flying about all over the place. You can see them in the air kind of drifting around, and lots of noise from them as well. So the other female is just lying down in the grass there. Both of them are kind of looking around. I think they're just searching for where the third female went. You can see she's just watching her pride member and seeing where she's going to go. But isn't that the most spectacular image in that green, beautiful grass? She looks so beautiful in that afternoon light. Absolutely incredible. Now I'm hoping the big male is going to get up and start joining them. I'm hoping the Birmingham boy will decide to go and move into the beautiful afternoon light as well. He really looks so impressive when he's in that light like he was earlier. So the sun is just getting to that nice level where the light turns really gold, and so I'm hoping he's going to get up and move that way. At this stage he's kind of just watching the females with that face as if to say, do I really have to follow you? But you know, males, they are very intent in mating, and so at the end of the day they'll follow the females should they have to. So he was flat and completely passed out, but with the females getting up, he's kind of looking around now and just seeing where they're going. I think as long as he can keep them in eye shot, he probably in all likelihood will stay in the shade. I don't think he's going to move too far from the shade as long as he can see them. But isn't that mane absolutely beautiful? It's really gotten so nice and thick now. They're looking the part more and more each day. They're starting to get really big, and they're looking very imposing and impressive these days. Tweety tweet, will the females fight over the male? Well, not that I've ever seen. Generally you'll find that if there's multiple females in heat, more than one male will end up coming into the area and will probably then cover that different female, and so you'll find that the males tend to fight more, but the females not so much. I haven't seen females fighting with one another over mating rights at all, so I doubt it. But you can never say never. It's the thing about wild animals, is that generally they don't behave in a certain way, but there's always can be special circumstances and special situations that can lead to these kind of things. But you can see she's lying flat, 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 flat. Well, Lauren, that's a very interesting question. What do the airplanes do when lions are lying on the airstrip? Well, generally, the planes land during the hottest parts of the day, and so 9 times out of 10, the lions are actually not on the airstrip itself. They're off the airstrip by that time of the day. They're lying in the shade to the fringes, and so the plane can still land. The lions don't seem too perturbed by it. But if the lions were to be on an airstrip, then it complicates things slightly. Luckily, in this particular area that we're in, we have access to multiple airstrips, and so sometimes we'll just divert the flight and send the flight somewhere else so that we don't have to disturb the lions. I did have a situation once where the lions killed a big giraffe in the middle of the airstrip, and it kind of made a bit of a problem, and so we ended up, oh, I see the male's just walking past us here. He's decided to get up and go and see the females. So we actually had to end up kind of just pushing the lions off for a little bit and then pulling the giraffe carcass off the runway so that we could get them off. Otherwise they would have just spent all their time there, and we wouldn't have been able to get all the guests that were coming in. And unfortunately guests travel a long, long way to get here, and so we can't exactly stop them from coming in. So unfortunately the lion's meal had to be dragged slightly. Now you see he's turned over his shoulder, and that is because there's some elephants that are actually starting to approach us. So they are starting to come down to this little water hole where the lions were, and they're still in the thickets and they're not quite here yet, but hopefully they will start. You can just see the tip of one ear, so we'll keep an eye on that, and hopefully when they come out into the clearing, then we'll get a better visual. But this male is spoiled for choice. I don't think he knows which one he actually wants to go to at this stage. I think he's decided the female on the left is the one for him, and off he goes. But isn't that spectacular to see him in that beautiful afternoon light? Is absolutely magnificent. I'm just going to go forward a little bit so we can draw up alongside of him and be able to see him a little bit better. I'm sure once he finds a comfortable spot there, he's actually going to lie down. I don't think he's going to go right up to that female unless she's coming into an estrus cycle. I'm pretty sure that he's just going to find a comfy spot and lie down. can see he's just stopping and looking around. There are still those impalas right at the bottom side of the airstrip that are still watching him. So you'll see Craig will get them now. There we go. So you can see they're watching this male lion quite intently. They know that the distance that they are from those lions is nothing to worry about. It's far too far away for these lions to get hold of them, but they're still going to keep a close eye because they obviously don't want to get caught unawares. There we go. And so you can see that male is there now, just standing over the female, just watching very, very carefully what's going on. I'm sure he's going to lie down shortly. I don't think he's going to stay seated for too long. I mean, stay standing, should I say? Sorry. But that light is just absolutely incredible. Isn't that amazing, eh? So I'm really so excited about getting these lions. Like I say, haven't seen too many signs of them, and with the Nkuhumas moving into Manyeleti, it makes life a little bit tough. So to get these guys out in the open, and also in this afternoon, I didn't think we'd get too much activity early on. I thought the lions would be very stationary and very sleepy, but as you can see, they've actually been really active. So perfect timing for us. They've been moving around quite a bit. I think the tar is a little bit too hot for him, so he's going to find a bit of a grassy section rather to go and lie down in. He's not as brave as the female. Also, at the end of the day, he does have that thick collar of fur that she doesn't have, and so he'll be a lot hotter anyway. And you can see he's found himself the perfect spot there. There's a nice little ridge that he can lie his head on, so he doesn't actually have to bend down too far. And he's gone fast asleep. So as I was talking about activity, all activity has ceased. Everybody has gone flat, which is pretty typical of a lion, actually. They tend to do these things. Debbie, indeed, I do find it interesting that they are lying on this tarmac. I didn't think that they would. That tarmac must be roasting hot. It can't be very pleasant at all. But maybe it's just the lack of insects on the tarmac is what's driving them there. So rather than lying in this grassy area where there's all these ticks at the moment and all these little insects and biting flies, it may be a lot more comfortable on the airstrip because none of those are going to be crawling around on her, so she's not going to be getting nearly as much irritation out of the insects by lying there. That would be my guess, because it really must be very, very warm. You can actually see she's breathing very heavily, so she's hot, she's right out and exposed. The only saving grace is that up here on this little ridge of the airstrip, there's really a beautiful breeze that is blowing that's quite cool, and so it is very, very pleasant for us sitting here. It's actually not too bad even in the sun, so maybe that breeze is just helping to keep her nice and cool. Ingrid, the type of birds that we're hearing in the background are lapwings. Now, there's two different species. So, there we go. They're busy calling now. Coming right over us. So, there is the Senegal lapwing and there is the crowned lapwing. So, the crowned lapwing was the one when the lioness was walking up towards the airstrip, and it had a little black and white crown. And that one there that's sitting on the airstrip a little bit away from the lions is the Senegal lapwing. And the reason why they're making so much noise is because of the lions. So the lions have disturbed their area. They know that there's a predator around, and so they're complaining bitterly because these lions have disturbed their area that they generally spend time in. Alright, so we're going to sit with these guys a little bit longer. It's such a beautiful setting and such a beautiful sighting, and so while we sit with them, we're going to go across to James and see how the bushwalk is going. It's just over here in this area. And if you can spot her, there she is. So from back there, you wouldn't have seen absolutely anything. But now that we've come a bit closer, you can actually see her. So now you can imagine if something like a buffalo or a zebra or a wildebeest came here and she lay absolutely flat with those ears tucked away, it would be really, really difficult for those antelope to see her, and so she'd be in prime place. And so for them, when it's like this and there's lots of green grass and the grass is growing a little bit, it's become much, much better for hunting. This female, of course, is ruining all of that because she's lying right out in the open, so if anything did have to come now, she would be spotted quite quickly. But I see that wound that's on her sort of upper right leg is healing really nicely. Last week when I saw her, it was a little bit more open than that. It seems to have closed up a little bit. You can actually see the little hole there, so that looks like she was probably bitten by another lion. It does happen, especially over carcasses. You'll find that when they catch something, it's an absolute feeding frenzy, and so they go after one another and they bite at one another, and sometimes they cause a damage like that. Or it could have been with the males. Sometimes the males try and mate with the females and they're not having any of it, and they end up with a little altercation and she gets bitten. So it's nothing to worry about though. You can see it's all closed up now. The flesh is very healthy. There's no necrosis of that wound whatsoever, so she'll be just fine. And we saw her walking just now. She's not walking with any sort of limp and is in no way affected whatsoever. Isn't that a beautiful scene? An absolutely beautiful scene. Like I say, I'm hoping it's the temperature's dropped quite quickly now, so it's a lot cooler than it was when we first arrived here, and I'm hoping that that cooler kind of weather is going to spark some life. And I haven't seen the third female. I don't know where she's ended up. I haven't seen her return. The impalas are still south of us where that female went, and so in all likelihood she's gone off quite far away, so I haven't heard any alarm calls for anything. If she was down further south where she walked, those impalas definitely would not be head down feeding like that. They would have been still watching her and shouting at her, and you can see they're not perturbed in any way, so I highly doubt she's lying anywhere down there. I'm pretty sure she's gone south and east, and that would have been out of our traversing area and into a different part of the reserve. But isn't that a spectacular view? You can see why the lions like it here. Look at that sun that's busy setting over this little pan. It is absolutely beautiful. Very, very beautiful scene that. There is sunken sunsets. They are absolutely spectacular. With the reflection in the water, very pretty. So I imagine once that sun dips below that tree line is when these guys maybe would start to wake up. It would be really quite pleasant if they ended up making a bit of noise for us. So that's why we're sitting with them and hoping that there might be some sort of vocalizing from them. I doubt there will be though. Generally what happens is with these males, when they join up with the females, and if they think that the female might be in heat and they're kind of sniffing around, they don't want to make too much noise in case one of their brothers rocks up and they then have to compete for this female. So generally the males are very quiet when they're with females that are in estrus. So I highly doubt they're going to make too much noise. The other females might start vocalizing just to try and contact the third one. If she's drifted a lot further away, they might start to call to be able to try and contact one another. You can see she's popped her head up now. I don't see anything that might have alerted her, but she's kind of just looking around. I think it's more just to see where everybody's gone. You know, when she flopped down, everyone was lying in the shade to the west of her. They now are lying north of her, so she's just checking where everyone is and making sure that she hasn't been left behind. Oh, trying to catch some flies there. I wouldn't be surprised now that it's cooling off a little bit that she actually stands up out of that grass and comes and joins the other female on the airstrip. Like I was saying earlier, far less parasites, so it'll be much better for her. Alright, so we're going to sit a little bit longer and see if they're going to vocalize, and while we do that, I believe Brent has got a hyena for all of you. They've been very stationary. In fact, I don't think any of them have even popped their heads up since you last were with us. They've been very, very, very lazy. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to probably carry on. They're, at the end of the day, very, very, very passed out. So I think we're going to just leave them here and let them enjoy the rest of their evening. And what we're going to try and do is we're going to just go and see if maybe we can pull a little rabbit out the hat and see if we can find any more signs of Karula or Shongile or any of the royals on the cub's birthday. I know they went south into Little Garis, which is south of our traversing area, but we're going to go and try and just see, maybe they've by some miracle come north and we get a visual of them. So that's going to be the plan. We're going to carry on now and see what we can find.